Hey everyone. So welcome to this update, this special update. Normally I only do like one update a week, and in those updates you'll get tea and Kickstarters, and also we're showing off like 2 pages a week from Whistleblower and Odyssey, so you get one of each. But for this one, I wanted to bring on Luke. That way, that way. There you go. Who is my co-writer for Odyssey? One half of Lone Tales. And the reason the two of us are here is that essentially we wrote Odyssey in quite a unusual way. Yeah, unique.
Yes.
Probably a better word. In that when I think when the idea came to me in terms of Harry and I talking about like where the Snow universe sort of ends, like what the final point is. I knew it was going to be kind of like a infected zombie story thing. I didn't really know what it would be. I knew where the infection would come from, and I knew it was always going to be about this ship called Odyssey trying to get off Earth, like it is the last ship leaving. And so when we were talking about it, I immediately was like, I'd like to write this with Luke, because I just thought it seemed like a really fun kind of just story to write. And I was like, I haven't ever co-written anything. Like I hadn't kind of jumped into a story with somebody, and this felt like the one where I was like, yeah, I want to bring in Luke. So I can't remember at what point we said, bear in mind we wrote this back in like 2018.
Long time ago.
Yeah, but I can't remember how we came up with the way that we wrote it, but essentially the way that we did it was one of us would write the first 4 pages, and then the next would come in and write the next four, and then so on and so on until we had a full finished comic. And I know we talked about there being a kind of a natural divide, that there's like the family in the first chapter, and then there's like a story of another ship, and that was kind of the natural split. And then halfway through the story, there's another natural split. But I can't remember how we decided on the whole 4 page thing.
I think originally it was, if I remember right, that we were going to do, it was going to be half and half, obviously, which is essentially what happened, but it was going to be half a story with another story, the other side of it. But then it was that you had started writing the pages, and I think I had started writing some, and then it was kind of like, wow, why don't we do it like this? Because you were a little bit ahead of me, I think, with your part of what you were writing, because I mean, my daughter was 2 years old, so I was probably very busy with several things. But you were a bit ahead of me with where you were going, and I was like, I just started a bit of the family thing, and I can't remember. I just remember it. The only thing I do remember is that you said, why don't we just like do 4 and then 4 and then 4 and then 4. I don't remember what that actual reason was, other than you were a bit ahead of me, and I was like, well, I'm interested in writing this bit. And it was just natural. I think it just kind of happened. And then I think the only thing was that because you were a bit ahead of me, obviously I had to write, so we ended up in the same place.
Yeah, I do. I remember that,
which was interesting.
Because looking back on it, it kind of looks like a bit of like a writing exercise, where it's kind of like write 4 pages and see what the next person does, and then continue.
Because we did catch up. There were points where we caught up with each other. And then if I had written 4 pages, it kind of gave you the springboard to what you were going to do next. And then I just remember several conversations with it being like, well, this is where I'm going to go with it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to make sure that mixes in a little bit what I'm doing. Because we've released part 1, if anyone here has read it, which some of you might have, then, we're building up to a lot more in part 2, and you get part 1 and part 2 in this Kickstarter.
Yeah,
as a complete story. So it's probably, I'm sidetracking, but I don't remember, Nick. I don't remember 2018.
Yeah, I couldn't remember how we landed on it. Every time I've talked about it recently, I've kind of thought like, I don't know how we landed on it, but it was a really interesting way to write, because I remember opening up we had like a shared Word document, and I remember opening up
We
that
did.
document, and you'd see like 4 new pages, and it would just be like
Yeah.
or more in some cases, and it was like, whoa, this is really weird. Um, but it was a really cool way to write it. Like I really enjoyed
It
doing
was
that.
cool.
And
It was
yeah,
very enjoyable. So just because you gave me notes because of this whole universe is yours and Harry's. Harry's the artist on Odyssey. It's your brainchild basically. This whole thing. So you were giving notes because you had a vision, didn't you, of where it started and where it was gonna end. So you gave me notes as well. But the family that I was writing, they were brand new to the story,
yeah. I
weren't
mean,
they?
yeah, like that's the thing that when I've been reading it back recently, it's kind of why I wanted to do this video actually, is that um the family we follow, that is essentially all you. I think when I'm reading it back, like I wrote the half which is about this other ship in this first chapter, but the family was all you. So when we get into chapter 2, and there is like a natural divide on it, um, that's where I was sort of picking up with your characters.
Yeah,
And when
because
I'm reading,
because that is interesting because you had to take those characters on and write
mm,
them essentially the way I was writing them, but you had
yeah,
to join in with
yeah,
that.
yeah, and
And I
that
remember those notes. I remember your notes and my notes about where they were going to go and what they were like because I had to explain what my how I thought each character's background was and how I viewed them.
mhm.
So that is interesting, like how
Yeah,
you took that on.
yeah, that's the thing that like reading it back this time is kind of what I noticed is that um it for the second chapter especially, it's just how we sort of finish off this one story of this other ship and then join back up with the family again and then take the family on 2 different journeys. Like there's kind of a natural divide there, and it is just quite interesting. And then it sort of like it's like a weird branching narrative where it's like the first chapter goes like this, and then it comes in and we sort of write the same moment together, and
Mm-hmm.
then it goes out wide again, and then we all kind of come back in again
Come
towards the
back
end
in.
of it. And I just found that really interesting. There was something about reading that, knowing what our process was, where we were kind of bouncing off of each other and picking up different threads. Because there's like one moment in chapter 1 where I did something that can kind of be seen in the sky. I'm trying not
Yeah,
to spoil it in case anybody hasn't read it, obviously. But it was then seeing how you wrote that in as a reaction with the characters.
yeah.
Um,
On the rooftop, wasn't it?
yeah, stuff like that is really cool to just kind of see this like symmetry in the world stuff. So yeah,
I'm
I
hoping that the people that back it, which is we're very very thankful if you do back it, that it'll be interesting to see how they view almost two different writing styles as well, and if it feels like it's seamless.
yeah,
Like, can they tell? Obviously, they're probably now we've said like it's like you're writing a bit about the ship and the family, but especially in part 2, like can you? Because it didn't actually fall every 4 pages in the end, did it? Towards the end, if I'm
yeah,
right,
no, towards the
because there were
end,
some bits where I
yeah,
did 3, but you did 5,
yeah,
or there's a mixture like that towards the end because of how the story played out.
mhm.
So I wonder how when I read it back recently, obviously I know because I was part of writing it, but I wonder how seamless it feels to someone who's reading it. So it's just a hook. That's why you should back it if you're on the fence of backing it, because wouldn't that be exciting to
Yeah,
work out who wrote which bit
bit, yeah, and then tell us when you've
and
read it.
tell us? Yeah,
Let us know which one you think. But the other thing I wanted to ask you was because I did an interview recently where they were asking me questions about like what my zombie influences were or influence in terms of infected stories, and I don't think you and I have ever really discussed where you were coming from. Like I kind of knew what side I was coming from in terms of I was like, this is the kind of tone I wanted to do. But I don't think when we were kind of conceptualizing it or deciding what we wanted to do, I don't think we ever said like as a reference point, like this is the kind of thing we're doing. I think we both just kind of did it and saw if it gelled together.
yeah. I think the end game. If like you mean like is in like like what we linked, how we viewed what the zombies would be like and things, and like
Yeah, like was there for you, because like obviously we've said for
what influenced it.
yeah, like we said like 28 days later, obviously, which was definitely kind of in my head, like 28 days
Yeah, that was
later.
the end. That was for me as well. Like
Yeah.
in when there are hordes and stuff, which is more so in part 2. 28 Days Later is probably that. They're always the kind of zombies that I think of, like the really hectic. Like it's easy to think like, oh, if there's an apocalypse, I'd love the zombies to be like Shaun of the Dead zombies, because you can still live your life, couldn't you? And they're very slow and they're very dumb. But the sort of terrifying zombies are like those 28 Days, Day of the no, I guess Day of the Dead like remake, but like the fast-paced, frenzied, like no shits given kind of zombies. But with the family at the beginning, it was The Walking Dead, I guess. Is that's the kind of pace and the way I viewed it, because Walking Dead is in. I mean, I've got a very big comic collection, but The Walking Dead has always had I've always had a soft spot for it. TV show was also fine up until like a certain season, but I think the pacing and the way the family focuses in those comics is massive, and I really enjoy those comics, and that's why when I think of like a family in a zombie apocalypse setting, that I kind of go back to like The Walking Dead. That's probably where the family are more based off than anything. But replacing, because the zombies in something like Walking Dead are, again, they're fast and things, but they're not 28 Days Later fast. So it's kind of a mixture, like the family side of it from The Walking Dead mixed with the 28 Days Later zombies. Which puts even more, like, because you can't even really outsmart a lot of zombies in 28 Days Later, can you? They're just coming for you. So that is the more terrifying. So yeah, that's Walking Dead and 28 Days Later. Probably the first half Walking Dead, and then moving into sort of that 28 Days Later territory.
Yeah, that's cool. I can kind of see it as well, because again, like that was the thing when I was reading it back this time as well, is that like I read it back just before I did this interview that everybody can kind of find in our previous update, but I was kind of going through it, looking at what my influences were in terms of the sections that I was writing. But then reading your sections, I was like, I don't actually know what Luke's like. I in my head, I was like, oh, I think it's still 28 Days Later, because I think we were both on the same page in terms of like the pace of this book has just got to keep being relentless. Like it's got to kind of keep going. But some of the like quiet moments in this, especially the first half, like when you introduce the family like on this rooftop, it is like a nice quiet moment where it's just them trying to figure out and get their bearings and figure out how to get to the Odyssey and stuff. And then things kind of pick up. You do like a really nice double page spread. But reading that back, I was like, I was so curious where you'd landed on it, because it obviously goes from like my half in that first story is very much about the world, almost, in that it's like this is what infection can kind of look like in this version. And then yours is the kind of like more centered on the family and these characters and building up who they are and stuff. So
because you have to build those connections, right? Because although we're very lucky that we did it over 2 single issues and now collected, but there isn't loads of time to, we're not doing 12 hardcover volumes like The Walking Dead or something. We got to build these characters up quickly and show their connections before shit goes crazy. But the other thing about 28 Days Later as well, my reason behind it is because we know that these characters are trying to get off planet, right? That's what they're trying to do. Like, you've got to make the zombies so terrifying that it's uninhabitable. Like, there's no staying on Earth anymore. Like, we have to get off. There's no, like I said, Shaun of the Dead. There's no a guy sitting playing PlayStation in a garage. There's no, let's take over this building and see if we can hold out for X amount of years. Like, it's fucked between everything going on, with these horrible zombies running around. Like, got to get the fuck out of there. So you really have to amp it up, which we do in the second part of this comic.
Nice. Yeah, I was just really curious. Like, yeah, it was just what made me want to do this, is just because I was so curious about like the insight from your half, like kind of knowing what mine is, because I don't feel like we've ever, because we wrote this so long ago, I don't feel like we've ever just sat down and kind of been like, yeah, where did we approach this story from? So yeah,
I think I just remember we just went for, I mean, I know we talked about we were going to do it and like where we wanted to go, and I remember it being quite not a long process, but again, sometimes playing catch up and me filling in pages here and there and everything. But it, I think it was pretty. I mean, the whole thing was pretty seamless, though, wasn't it? Which was enjoyable as well. There was no. We both like a lot of the same comics and everything is like that as well. So
Yeah.
and I think it was easy to do and very interesting. So I'm excited at what people think of it when they read the whole collection. If you've backed it.
Yeah, and yeah, speaking of that, if you're watching this and you haven't backed Lone Tales yet, please do back it. You can get 124 pages of comic goodness from just £8, which I think is
Pretty good.
$11, something like that. And yeah, so please check out our tiers.
Some really good tiers. There's one, the headshot tier, where our artist Mr. Harry Hughes, he will draw you as a zombie. You can see the images of, probably wondering who those handsome people are in the cover. That's me and Nick and Harry.
Yeah.
So that could be you. So that's our headshot tier, and we got loads. You get digital bundles. You can get all the Snow Universe stuff that Nick and Harry have already done, and some other gems. So yeah, please read it, back it, put whatever you can in, and you'll get something very mighty in return.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks, Luke. And
thanks Nick.
Anytime. And yeah, we will see you on the next update, which will probably be next week. But for now, please go check out our project page and yeah, support Lone Tales, share it with people, share it with anyone, enemies, friends. We love them all.
Especially enemies.
Especially enemies.
they've got deep pockets, those enemies.
Cool.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
See ya. Bye.